travel out of the.
We just got the
Oh, okay. We just started negotiating.
Yeah, you're stuck with me.
So that was just enough.
I know. Some days, no, I'm just. Oh, really? Mark's like, where are you going? Nice. Are you flying or driving? Oh, really? It's not down by the hill.
No, but it's
Kind of same area.
kind of more towards the west.
Oh, okay. Fun. It won't be quite too long. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It is, yeah. But they showed me.
Okay. Because you helped on it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Get on that.
Yeah.
You can just say hi.
Hey, Diane, thanks for calling out that that was embedded. I was like, where is that? I was expecting like a fifth
Well,
page.
after you had looked at it, I thought, you know what, I think the better, if you had a hard time finding my better.
I just looked right over it. I went back and looked and I was like, dang, there it is. Right now.
You probably have it back, right? So that'd be
It
nice.
works. Well, I work. Yes.
No, you already.
That's a good side.
I'm not there.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I am ready. Are we ready, Greg?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So with that, at 6:07, I will go ahead and call us to order for our regular session tonight. If you would all join me for flag salute and pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'd like to welcome everybody. Thank you for joining tonight. Follow up, are we recording? Perfect, thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to on the spot, but I just wanted to make sure we're good to go with the technology side. So our first order of business is agenda consideration. I would entertain a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
I'll make the motion that we accept the agenda as presented.
One second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. With that, we will move to public comment. We have three folks tonight who are going to be giving public comment. So let's start with Jenny Rosenblatt. You want to share?
Yes.
Thanks, Bill.
Oh, thank you. I hate that I can't see either, so I have to new thing wear glasses. So some of you guys are on negotiating committee, I think, and some of you aren't. So you might not be as up on, what's going on in that end, but I'm going to read this letter about what it's like teaching this year and I'll just get started. Dear members of the school board, because of heavy class loads all day long, the fact that my small classroom has to fit all the students' Chromebooks, backpacks, coats, lunches, water bottles, etc., because barely anyone is choosing to have a locker now that it's a choice. The overabundance of absences and increased student apathy towards school over COVID, it just seems like it's not as much priority as it used to be. The obnoxious attention-getting behaviors of middle schoolers, the back talk and resistance to wearing masks and taking down hoods and not being backed up by parents in that, even though that's over now, it's been a hard year because of that. Whether we believe in it ourselves or not, we have to enforce it. My discomfort and ability to breathe in a mask, which I have to wear all day long, and the idea that if I take a sick day when I feel sick, my colleagues will have to use their prep periods to cover my class because of the substitute shortage. And because of my long-term effects from getting COVID, I got it the Monday before we were off for short-term distance learning. So because it showed up on that Friday, the following Friday, and I hadn't seen anyone, so I know I got it from school. All of that has made this just be a really hard year. To put the icing on the cake, inflation is through the roof, and I'm working for less money than my teacher friends in Canby, Salem, Portland, Arlington, Washington, Molalla, and Silverton. These are actual friends. I'm not just naming random cities, who have taught for fewer years and have less education than I have. Woodburn just gave each teacher a $2,000 retention bonus using COVID relief funds while we spent hours negotiating to catch up with other districts. As a teacher in Oregon, I expect low pay, but I do not feel we deserve the lowest in our area. I feel hurt and undervalued knowing that smaller districts like Jervis are able to find money to pay their teachers significantly more than North Marion teachers. I don't know about significantly, but more. I love planning lessons, working with the children and seeing the artwork results. Our principals, I forgot to say I'm the art teacher at the middle school. I should have introduced myself. I've been teaching for 30 years and I've been in North Marion for 16 in all grades. Our principals, Tammy and Dave, are positive and helpful and are always showing care and support for us teachers, but I'm not happy working for North Marion with this low of pay. There is a big problem with the way the top end of the pay scale is structured. As school board members, you're elected to represent the interest of the North Marion community, not the employees of the district office, and to make sure that the needs and desires of the public are brought to life. I live in Hubbard and my neighbors and I think it's important that our district pays teachers at least in the middle of what other districts in our area are paying. I think the most engaged North Marion community members would agree with me that our pay is an embarrassment. And then I just went up and down my street and had my neighbors sign this because they're members of the community. And they agreed. And for example, our top amount we could make, which I've been at the step 15, I came here at step 15 years and the farthest over. We pay $73,453. $4,000 if you've been here for more than 5 years, you get the $4,000 longevity. Another school district that's compared, Gladstone is 56,700. Canby's I'm at 86,779. Canby is 85,726. Salem's like around 85,000. The school that's 17 minutes away, Lowry Elementary, has openings. It's 89,000, and they're bargaining this year for the next, it's not going to be 89, it's going to be higher. They're bargaining. So even if we get, by the way, the district's offer was 5% and not retroactive. So this whole year so far, we just get the 77,000 pay, whatever. So the not retroactive part is just infuriating. But even if we get 10%, you take the 73,000, you add about 7,000 to get the 10%, that's 80,000. All these other districts are 85, 86. And so if we add the 4,000 longevity, that's 84. That's still less than everybody else with 10%. And so if the community, thinks we don't deserve 10%, which I think some people are behind us, and they really do think we deserve at least the 10%. I wish there was a new restructure of the top end of the pay scale, because what you make at the end of your career, they average those last 3 years, and then you make that part of the formula for the rest of your life. It's depending on what you make at the end. And this is my 30th year. And I keep on hoping that the average will be something higher, because all my friends who work at these other districts are making more money per month for the rest of their life than me, because I'm staying here at North Marion. So I just want to say that if you're on the negotiating team, just decide to pay the teachers, please. And if you're not, now you know how angry that I feel about this. and I think other teachers do too. I know they do. So that's all I have to say. And sorry to be negative, but I feel negative about it. So thank you.
Next up, we have Paige Janela.
I'm bringing these teachers with me because they actually wrote the letter and I'm going to read it. I'm Paige Gianella, and I guess you might call me the liaison between the teacher union and the board. And so I agreed that I would read this. And Alicia Fritz is the one of our SPED teachers at the intermediate school, and Emily Gibson is also a SPED teacher at the intermediate school. But this letter is also from the primary SPED teachers, and I'll read their names at the end. Dear North Marion School District School Board members, the special education team at the primary and intermediate school would like to share how our 2021-2022 school year is going. Bullets: concern for staff safety, concerns for student safety, not the same opportunities as general education peers, lack of support staff, staff overwhelmed. The self-contained classrooms are unique environments that serve our students with the highest needs, often behavior needs. We have students who have high medical risks and needs, who throw things, run away, some who get aggressive with peers and adults, and students who attend general education classroom lessons. These students need time with their peers, but they also need an adult to attend the general education classroom lesson with them. When there are not enough adults to do this, as well as support the teacher and students in the self-contained room, the students who can and need to attend their typical peers cannot. Attend with their typical peers cannot. Additionally, when those students with aggressive tendencies escalate, there's not enough adults to maintain safety as well as support the remaining students with their regular routine. Without the ability to continue the regular routine, the students miss out on instructional time as well as time with typical peers. For safety reasons, to get students designated inclusion time and to meet specified special designed instruction minutes,
Each self-contained special education classroom needs 3 to 4 adults. The number of adults ensures the classroom runs smoothly, is safe, and can serve all kids appropriately. The more adults that the classroom can have, the safer and more supportive it will be. Currently, Foundation B at the primary school has 1 teacher and 1 instructional aide. The current teacher in Foundation B, a former Foundation A instructional aide, received an emergency substitute teaching license to be lead teacher in Foundation B, which then left Foundation A with 1 less IA. Foundation A now has 1 teacher and 1.5 instructional aides. Foundation A also has a student who is medically fragile and legally requires a one-on-one adult just for himself, and often requires 2 adults to support bathroom and transition routines. Foundation A at the intermediate school has 1 teacher and 3 instructional assistants, losing 1 adult as of spring break, and 1 of these adults is actually a substitute that is not a district employee. Foundation B has 1 teacher and 3 adults. The adults in these rooms, especially at the primary school, are overwhelmed and not receiving the support they need. More kids are being added to these classrooms, but no more adult support is being given as well. We understand that there are currently no applications for the positions. The special education staff has tried to come up with some creative ways, excuse me, some creative ways to help support each other and the incredible staffing needs of the Foundation classrooms. What it comes down to now is there are no more solutions. Resource teachers, principals, and secretaries have been pulled from their own responsibilities and duties in order to fill in some of these gaps. However, this in turn just creates a further drain on more staff. The staff is tired, overworked, overwhelmed, and sometimes injured by students. Additionally, there has been more instances of student injuries as a result. The low staff numbers have been an issue. Teachers have been advocating to support since the spring of 2021 school year. Yet another legally obligated issue is the expansion of kids on abbreviated school days. We have several kids attending and succeeding in their current time. They are ready to increase, but there's no feasible way to do so. Morale is low for staff, and job opportunities elsewhere are being considered. Despite having a love for this district as well as the community, we need to entice people to want to be part of our school district. Could the district offer a one-time sign-on bonus? Special education IAs and teachers work with our most highest needs students, oftentimes with behavior needs as well. Starting wage at many local businesses currently is around $17 an hour. Can we increase our special education IA minimum wage to match this wage? Thank you for your time. We hope that as school board, you can possibly help us rectify the situation. Sincerely, Tammy Esme, Emma Wise, Alicia Fritz, Emily Gibson, Jacqueline Vigris, and Tiffany Kolowatz. And just 2 little things I wanted to add that I see in the school as reading specialists. The other specialists, like in technology, music, and PE, when the kids with special needs don't have an aide come with them, it disrupts their classroom and the other kids lose learning. And then those teachers are feeling the stress as well. And then the other thing I notice, I've got kids in the primary school that need specific reading interventions provided by our learning specialist. She cannot serve any of them because she is so busy with behaviors and foundations. So our kids needing reading interventions are losing out also. So it is really sad to see my colleagues stressed and suffering. And again, it partly goes back to offering a better wage and attracting more people in our district. So thank you for listening, and sorry I was choking up.
Thank you, Paige. Matt Kennedy?
Easily stand up, but since the chair is comfy, I'll just plant it right here. I decided about a month ago to approach the school board and share some concerns and some thoughts I have. and was gonna plan for it, and I thought it was tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. So over the last couple hours, I hustled, and I'm gonna read from the script a little bit to keep myself on track rather than I hadn't planned to. But my goal in coming here tonight is to look back at the difficult period that we've had over the last 2 years and reviewing that time to see how we can do better for our kids in our community. I want to acknowledge that you have all been put in a difficult spot in that time, as you have a lot of different opinions aimed at you during the pandemic. I've noted to some of you that myself and others have had issues within our district as they've canceled activities that were being allowed in other large districts close by. I've helped parents uproot their lives and move their children to other states simply so their children can have a normal education school experience, and they've thrived. I'm a realtor, and so I deal with people moving in and out of state. I've helped host private events for the kids when the district has failed them. I've watched sports abroad act normally while having restrictions in our district. Our kids have more rights in Walmart than they do on this campus. I reached out to leadership regarding this and have been ignored. None of this is right. There's been evidence all along that shows the mandates have come along with notable risks, or have come with notable risks. There's now documented legal evidence that the very company pushing COVID shots knew of the risks to the young and healthy. The way the district stays out of the fray on this is to let the parents be parents. Your job is to educate. Parents need to play the dominant role in the well-being of their children. I'm not here to hammer you with peer-reviewed science or papers or to form your opinions. I'm here to support freedom and equality. The official statements that have been made to form our health policies have been wrong. Safe and effective, possibly for some, certainly not for others. While I can tell you a handful of troubling accounts with my personal friends, I'll share just one. My close friends in West Lynn have a 15-year-old daughter. She was told that she needed her COVID vaccine to travel to New Jersey with her friends. 2 days after she had her second shot, she developed blood clotting that became life-threatening. Meridian Park said her case was not unique, there were others. As things got worse over a week or so, she ended up in Randall's Children's Hospital. They called her recovery a miracle. To this day, she has complications, and her doctors tell her parents, my close friends, that they can't compare her case because the other kids that had her condition did not live. So they can't compare notes to the other kids that had Stella's condition. So while her friends traveled to New Jersey, she stayed here and fought for life and didn't get the benefit of the reason she got her vaccinations. I'm the son of James Kennedy, a gay man that gave life to myself and my brother and my sister. A man who was lured to his murder as I exited my junior year from this very campus. I'm the son of Elizabeth Kennedy, an 88-year-old mother and matriarch of my family, a woman who raised us while spending a 45-year career as a registered nurse, a woman devoted to Mennonite faith and a lifelong member of this very community. I'm a lifelong resident of this community. I'm a man who does business in a broader region, but I'm based in Hubbard. I interact with people from every walk of life every day. I don't have a prejudice or racist bone in my body. I see people as human beings, not as Christians, Muslims, Democrats, Republicans, vaxxed, unvaxxed, Mexican, Chinese, gay, straight, purple, pink. I don't care. Human beings. During the last couple of years, we've created a class of division. Public venues have created seating for vaxxed or unvaxxed guests, masked versus unmasked. We've created a new class of us versus them. We've allowed segregation. When you all go home tonight, there are freedoms and choices that you'll all have. I support all of those freedoms and choices and your right to make the most intimate of life's decisions for yourselves. You should live without fear, segregation, and discrimination. I would stand up for that for every one of you. And when children, staff, parents step foot on this campus, you better be damn well sure those rights fall onto this campus. Those rights don't get to be held hostage for a public education we all pay for. So the next time you're pressured to play politics with our children, I ask you push back. I know you have restrictions your hands are sometimes tied, but you need to push back for individual choice and for freedoms. You need to push that parental decisions are with the parents and not by administrative rule. Diversity should be our strength and rights should not be assigned by state or zip code. The children in our district should have the same opportunities the children do across this country. Thank you for your time.
All right, moving on our agenda, item number 3, board communication. don't have a lot to add in the beginning part of that on section A, but I am going to ask, maybe here, but I don't see them here tonight, so we may forego them being here. Student report. So let me give just a brief overview of our strategic planning. We have been engaged in that since December, and we're beginning to really get down into the meat and the brass tacks of it. So we've had survey members from our core group, and I would just point out, Ginger brought together a group of individuals, not just school related, but there's business, there's parents, there's clergy, there's members of the community. So there's a broad base of people who are sort of driving this process and making it happen. And all of them stakeholders in North Marion District, all of them stakeholders in seeing this district improve and go to a spot that it's not at right, maybe currently. And so kudos for assembling, a group of not just one, not just one group represented, but a whole broad base of representations from this district. So we've identified some core values of what makes North Marion. That is leading to some conversations about visioning and about mission statements. Quite frankly, the last session we had, those identifying values, we actually, pushed it back onto our facilitator to refine those to become, to be more succinct, more indicative of where we want to go, because we want to pursue a path that's best for North Marion and best for what North Marion exists today. North Marion is definitely a district in transition. Our makeup is different, our economic base is different, our industry is different. We have new facilities here. There's lots of areas that we can go, but we're really trying to identify what what we want North Marion to focus on for the next 3 to 5 years. In terms of making this district competitive with the districts around us, bringing achievement and excellence into that process. So I don't have a lot beyond that. We have sent some work back to our facilitator at the request of the group. And I don't know, do you have stuff to add to that, Bill?
I know, I was just laughing because your superintendent was asking me the same thing. But I think the only thing I would add is that having been involved with several districts in strategic planning, this process is being facilitated and engaged in remarkably well. And as you said, Glenn, I think you can be proud of the way that this group is kind of fearlessly, kind of sharing fearlessly and honestly, kind of how their vision for the district. And I think our facilitator is doing a nice job of making a safe environment where folks can really speak their truth, speak their mind, and share diverse ideas that are then allowed to process and kind of gel, as common ground within a diverse school district, as common ground towards, again, visioning and establishing a mission, which will eventually kind of result in strategies and actions to achieve those visions and missions. It's been an enjoyable experience. I think everyone has feels like they know more, about the school district broadly than they did when they came to the table because of the sharing and the diverse viewpoints that have come together. But have also really engaged in working towards some common ground for moving forward. And I know that we're still processing those initial core values that emerged, that I think we'll all be proud of as we have a chance to weigh in on those. And the opportunity to do some visioning at our next session, I think I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, I would just add, so the board is going to get pulled in a much bigger way very soon. So the next step is is basically a rough draft coming toward, to the board. Because obviously the board has to sign off on it and provide, generate the final version of where we want to go. But a lot of the details, kind of identifying things, is happening in this group, but then it's going to pass to us. And obviously I want our board to have skin in the game. And, for this to be successful as a strategic planning process, we need to also believe in as a board where we're going. So there's definitely going to be work headed our direction on it. I would just like to call out a couple of members of the audience. Alicia is on our thing. Tammy is on our thing. Obviously, Bill and Ginger are both drivers on that. So there's familiar faces here who are also contributing in, and a much wider group too. So that's all I'll say on that for now. But
I think maybe just one other thing about the process, just a reminder that this core planning team is involved in this establishing drafting values and vision and mission. And then their work in essence is done, and some of the strategy determining and action planning will involve other members of the school community.
yeah. Thank you, Bill. Thank you for the words, and I appreciate your work on it. And I appreciate you starting it, Ginger. I think it's the right time. I think we're sort of at a crossroads, and I think this is the right time for us to look forward, especially on that time horizon. So.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Actually, two questions.
Sure.
First, this is essentially the raw data, right?
Yes. So you're looking at the report, probably that the February, March comments?
It was like 20 page.
Yes.
That's,
Yeah.
that's the raw.
That is raw data, that probably in the roster that we have.
Yeah.
It represents comments from, I think it's 145 different comments from, I just wrote it down. It was from our group, this group, the strategic planning group, this group, and then responses. Irma was really good at reaching out and garnering responses from a number of parents. The survey has also went out to a number of students who we've got responses from, and we're still gathering responses from students as well. So what you're seeing there represents just really raw data and getting it molded down into a direction forward. So.
And then when you said you sent some of this back to the facilitator, are you asking for more data, or are you asking for?
No, I think we're asking
processing?
for it to be more succinct. So we're looking for, so this last session, we identified 7 core values. That's almost too much. It's almost too much to focus on a few areas. And along with those core values, we were identifying, maybe some catchphrases that identify North Marion or that are specific to North Marion as a district. And so some of those, even just in our changing district, some of those may have represented a time frame of 10 years ago, but they may not be indicative of where we're at right now. The strategic planning group has been really good and really honest in bringing that forward. Where are we at right now? What are we, what does our student population look like? What does the community look like? Where do we stand economically? And so that's all part of that process. And so when I say we sent it back, it wasn't that it wasn't good data. It's just, I think we're refining it to a point where it's more presentable to the board in terms of having specific, more specificity in the goals and in the direction we want to take the vision and mission statement. Would that be accurate, Bill?
Yeah, I think it is, and that really is, it's kind of an iterative process, so the facilitator's role is kind of take that initial thinking, synthesize something and bring it back and let the group then kind of get back into it again and refine it.
I mean, he's reading the group the same as everybody else and understanding, oh, this may not be, what we want to, push forward to the board to present, because it may not accurately reflect quite yet. And as more responses come in, that all filters through. I don't know if you read through there's a lot of, it covers a pretty wide range of issues. And bringing that down to where we can make the most impact, because we drive the budget committee and ourselves drive the budget, where we can spend those finite resources in a way to maximize really return on investment and push the district forward in a direction that that you all want to see go to, so.
And the group is really concerned that they're representing, an entire community, and, not just them as individuals, but so that's part of the refinement is them thinking about the community that they're representing and making sure that everyone can see themselves, in the work.
Yeah. Sorry, any other questions from anybody else? All right, moving on to item number 4, consent agenda. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to look through that. I would entertain a motion to approve our consent agenda.
I will make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Next up is item number 5, Superintendent and District Operations. Do you want to give us a review of the ticket time protocols?
Sure. Each school has taken the time to look at the new updated guidance and with the mask optional policy, and as we received the survey data about getting an idea of how many, approximately how many, and regardless, it doesn't matter what the answer is. It's just a matter of the school having an idea of what to expect. It looks like, overall that there's going to be some families that continue to mask, and that's fine, and families that do not, and that's fine. And each building came up with a plan of how to educate everyone about respecting people's choices, to be supportive, to be understanding, and doing little things that I learned from one of our other staff members that says that she just keeps a mask around. And then if she has a family that comes up and they're wearing a mask, she puts her mask on to support what the family needs for them. And at other times, she doesn't. So, people are making little changes like that. Everyone is very excited. I can't wait for tomorrow. And I don't care if I get drenched in the rain, I'm going to go outside and look at all the children smiling and seeing their faces. Some of them I haven't seen for 2 years. So that's very exciting. But the plans are in place. The staff has been trained, information's been shared, and we expect to roll. We received lots of questions for the FAQ from the survey. We created that information and sent it out to families so they could have answers to their questions. And we think it's, we're ready. We're very much ready to move into this next phase. So all the information is available on the web, and reach out if you have any questions.
I just had one clarifying point. You and I chatted about it, but visitors, there's still a clarification on visitors, and you said you haven't gotten guidance that has changed where we're at. So visitors are still.
The OHA guidance for the requirement for vaccinations for school staff, volunteers, and visitors is still in place. And visitors is defined as not short term. So drivers, people coming through and dropping something off, those people that are visiting the campus are not required to be vaccinated, but long-term visitors and volunteers that are spending time around faculty or students are required to be vaccinated. So not unlike the rule about people that had medical or religious exceptions. Initially, they were going to require them to continue with their protocols, and I just raised my hand and said, I'm sorry, but that doesn't make sense. If the state is changing the mask optional policy, it doesn't make any sense to have a group that, no. So I was able to garner enough people to, in my same position, to echo that same sentiment. And we were able to influence the change because we just didn't see that working. So people that have the exception that was approved back in October, because we've seen them through this whole time, we know that they only need to monitor their symptoms on a daily basis, and if they are exhibiting any of the primary symptoms, that they should not come to work. But they don't need to do weekly testing because now it would be pointless, and they don't need to wear a mask. It's a mask optional policy. So, but as far as everything else, it's still in place for now. I'm not done asking them to change their mind.
Sure, and I was gonna say, yeah, I just wanted to, there was some question about that, I think you had a question
Yeah.
about visitors, and
So-
so,
Yeah, I've gotten conflicting reports about visitors if they need 2 or 3 vaccines.
Two, there's
Okay.
the booster is not written into the eligibility.
Right. Okay, great.
so does that clarify that?
Mhm.
Okay.
So we just probably would communicate with them.
Anybody else have questions?
Which questions?
Yep, I'm happy to do it.
Are we allowed to ask questions in the audience or just the board?
Just the board. All right, non-resident transfers, are you reporting on that?
I'm happy to announce that we should continue with the current rule. I recommend adopting the rule for this year as last, that only emergency transfers out, and that we allow every student that we currently account for in our AEM, which should be around 1,800, that we allow as many students as want in to come in and fill every seat that's available and open. Right now, we're still significantly under enrolled and we need more students to come back. So the door is open, but we're only going to allow emergency transfers out. The other thing that we also used to do is allow people who were looking for multilingual programs. We're beginning to offer them at the primary level. They're working on what that will look like. We have staffing that can support that at the kindergarten level. And so we're hoping that we can start to attract families back that have left us for programs in other school districts. As we are gaining more bilingual staff, we are able to provide more support for multilingual families.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Does that include the online requests for like families that children, it's better that they're online than in person due to COVID? Like the Oregon, what is?
We're willing to work with any family that if they have a medical need, or if, we work with families.
Okay,
We
so it's not like a hard and fast that they don't have that option.
Well, yeah, not one size fits all. Our North Star is to have as many kids in person learning, but for some families that just don't work, there's a health risk or whatever reason. I mean, we work with those families to provide an education program.
Is this an action item is what I was gonna ask?
No, that's not an action.
Because we're just continuing what we're currently doing. Okay.
All right, moving on to item number 6. I'm sorry, are you done? Okay, item number 6. Do we have Linda?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I don't have much change. It's the same information. We're waiting for the state school fund update for the 21-22 school year. And that will play a big part in where we might land ending fund balance, which will play a part in how we can budget for this year. So that's about all I have on that. Are there any questions if you do the documentation for that? Does anyone have any questions?
I don't hear any. Thanks, Linda.
You're welcome.
Moving along to item number 7, board action. Actually, I believe it's not me presenting, but I think it's gonna, is it Dave Sheldon, is that right? Okay. So we'll let you come up here.
Oh, I guess.
Oh, sorry, that's Cheryl, thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. Nice to
Linda,
see you
can
all.
you have our slide presentation for? Okay.
All right, so Ms. Dyer and I are here this evening to talk to you about the process and outcome of the Academic Calendar Committee. So in early January, we were in our early planning stage. It was at that time that Superintendent Redlinger charged Cheryl and Diane and I to begin the early work. We began to contact different stakeholder groups and coalesce interests. That includes licensed staff, classified staff, variety of different stakeholders. We were actually really excited to have a student be part of our team this year. So that was a neat thing. And we ended up with this team that you see here that met frequently throughout February. So we want to say thank you to all these people. We have board member Ricardo Verastegui. Is that right? Awesome. Licensed board member Lindsay Mendez Garcia, also a parent. Classified member Giselle Terrell. The director of teaching and learning Sherry Stroud. Our district office member Diane Lauch. Student member Yadira Romero Navarro. And then admin from multiple levels, including Cheryl Dyer, Allison Hunt, and myself. So good representation from every level there. The process, we convened on February 1st, and the first thing that we always do in this team is review our values. What is it that we stand for and want to really represent? At the same time, we pull out the contractual language of the bargaining units and make sure that we understand that so we can meet it. We also take some time to look at different calendars from surrounding districts so that we are aware of what our neighbors are up to. Our values really lie with diverse representation on the team, minimizing any disruptions to the calendar. I remember when I first joined the team many years ago, there were different places around Thanksgiving, some other places where the calendar could use some cleaning up. There was a lot of disjointed nature there. And so we just want to maintain the minimization of disruptions. We do that by, again, carefully analyzing the ends and beginnings of those trimesters and where they coincide with holidays. We want to make sure that we maximize student learning days. We can go down beneath 172, but we like to keep it at 172, and that's what we really strive for. And then this particular year, we want to make sure that the calendar is easy to read and thus increasing access to the information. So you're going to notice a new format, and Ms. Dyer will kind of walk you through that. At our initial meeting, after going through our values, we decided that it's important to gather some data using a survey that was proctored for both parents and staff. And our big questions at this point were, do we start before Labor Day? This district has traditionally had a post-Labor Day start, and we wanted to just, we always want to ask the questions. Is there a change in how we want to do our business? We also have conferences for schools. And the question was, do we want to have those at the same time or at different times? We, being 4 small schools on one little block out in the country, want to make sure that we're giving our families what we need. And then do we offer virtual or in-person conferences just based on the experiences of the last year and a half and maybe what people have acclimated to and or desire moving forward. Some big questions that came out of the calendar committee. And every year there's just a couple of big questions, and it's not necessarily in the process of the calendar committee at the time to be able to answer these questions as much as to generate them and to be able to then hopefully move these questions onto other teams that might be able to do some of this work. One of them is, do we stay at a trimester or switch to a semester schedule? Another question that came out was, do we perhaps consider a later start for secondary students with their developmental considerations and then switch to an earlier start for our elementary students? And then there was also a notion of removing the late start Wednesday and possibly replacing it with some full days here and there, just underneath that idea of continuity for our families and procuring child services. Those just kind of regular days, if you will, if you're looking for childcare. So we reconvened on February 16th and we analyzed that survey data and we kind of looked for themes. We disaggregated it and we found that our community is still holding on to a post-Labor Day start. I think that's kind of for those of you that have served in the community before, just know that's something our community has continued to reinforce. Our community wanted to keep conferences at the same time. They do like having them together, and I certainly think we can see the logic in that. Our staff really like having a curriculum day after long breaks. It's nice to come back and be able to have an opportunity to prepare for students, and I think that actually works out well for students and the benefit of all. And then our community was really divided 50-50 for virtual and in person. So we're going to have to consider that as we kind of move into conferences next year. It's how do we do our business? That doesn't account for this spring. This spring we're still looking at virtual just based on everything, but moving into next fall, the administrative team as well as partners will look at how do we respond to this data. The team then made some recommendations for a couple different drafts to be constructed based on our prior work and the survey data. We then took a little break and those different drafts were constructed. We came back on February 25th, the three of us. And there's always this intensive work of getting as many eyeballs as you can on the calendars to make sure that you're counting the days, that you've got your trimesters balanced out. And so we put those together for the committee. We reconvened on March 1st, and the calendar committee reviewed a couple different drafts. And then again, we looked at what some of the districts and universities around us are doing. And the reason we did that, and you'll see this reflected in our calendar when Steyer gets to it, is there were a couple shifts, like spring break is a little bit later than normal, but that's something that all the districts around us are doing. And we wanted to make sure that we were in alignment because we know we have a lot of staff as well as business partners and other people working in these other communities. So we want to be as aligned as possible. So that spring break is now the last week of March. And the team opted to have both calendar versions represent spring break during that time. And then we made some final recommendations for a couple drafts to present to our union leaders. And we then presented those to the union leaders. We gave them ample time to present those to their constituency and get feedback. And they both came back with the exact same recommendation. And it's the one that we would have probably recommended anyway. And I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Yeah. So for both of the calendars that we considered, as Mr. Sheldon was saying, they both start after Labor Day. Having curriculum days and professional development days for teachers is important. Having the Tuesday before the first day of school, a work day for teachers to get everything set up. So the first day of school is a Wednesday. We were able to keep 172 student days to maximize learning, 190 license days for teachers. So something that's a little different this year, Wednesdays are Wednesdays are Wednesdays. So every Wednesday will be a late start Wednesday, not any more of these half days of Wednesdays, not late start, you get out half, you get out early. That's not in either one of these calendars, just to help with continuity for students. Conferences on the same days for the entire district. We balanced trimesters out. Trimester 2 has a few extra days. That's usually when we get inclement weather. So we tried to have a couple extra days in that trimester, which supports the weather. The end of trimesters are also, we tried to really think about when the end of the trimester, the half day is in there per contract language, and then there's the grading day at the end of each of the trimesters. So we do have a half day in there. And then January 2nd, it was a little bit different this year because January 1st is a Sunday. And so January 2nd is a non-contract day to allow a little bit more time before coming back. The last day of school is a Thursday because again, it needs to be a half day. So keeping kind of with that Wednesdays are Wednesdays, we wanted to make sure that was balanced. So the real difference between the two calendars is when the curriculum day is. So the curriculum day, through our survey, we had a lot of response around having a day after long breaks for teachers to come back and get prepared and ready. And even the student who is part of the committee said those days are really important for teachers because students want the best teachers in front of them. And so having that time for teachers to prepare is really important. So version 1 has the curriculum day after spring break on April 3rd, and version 2 has the curriculum day after winter break on January 3rd. And so students would start January 4th. So that's the big difference. So again, maximizing student contact days. We made sure that we were following all the language in the contracts. Again, I talked about the trimesters being even and taking into consideration of the feedback from both the community and the staff. So tonight we are recommending version 2 for everybody. And you guys have you've had an opportunity to look at that. And that is the one that has the curriculum development day in January, right after winter break. And so staff would return on January 3rd. Students would return on January 4th as a late start Wednesday.
And if I could say one last thing, just a really big thank you to Diane Lausch and to Cheryl Dyer for their facilitation of the team, and also just the accessibility and readability of the new format. It's much more clean and has a lot less symbols, a little bit more color to represent things. So we believe that this will make it easier for our community to know which days are which.
Yeah, go ahead.
The UNME approved this
They've seen it, yeah.
Yep.
They provided feedback.
and they were okay with the amount of student contact days.
Yes. Yeah. We heard from both Cindy Nelson and Mark John, and they both approved it and they both liked this particular version.
Can I ask a couple questions? Does this account for like the freshman orientation and the sixth grader orientation still in there?
On that
Okay.
Tuesday before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't sure what it was still there.
Yeah.
And then my next question is for Ginger. With the new ELA curriculum that we may have K through 12, is this something that we want to consider negotiating for just on this side? So we have that K through 12 curriculum we're going to bring forward in July. Will this accommodate the training that's required? And you'll probably have to talk to Sherry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want me to answer that? Or do you want to ask, do you want Sherry to? answer?
Well, if you know the answer.
There are additional training hours built into the planning and budgeting for the ELA
Okay.
curriculum. So that might be outside of this, but
Okay.
there are additional training hours because it will be a lot of training needed.
So my dilemma is, if that's needed, is that going to take our contact days away?
No.
That's-
No,
Okay,
So for instance,
that's where I was going.
Yeah.
with
And
the
we are
social,
unanimous. That's
that. Okay.
the
Yeah,
social
that
studies
doesn't affect
adoption that
us.
just happened.
Uh-huh.
So the teams that were part of that and needed to work on their maps and their units, they had 40 hours, they had 5 days.
Okay.
That was
outside of
prior to this.
It
So
doesn't. okay,
they actually
perfect.
chose to come back the week before, and we give them flexibility when they want to do this.
Okay.
They came back the week before the rest of the staff came back.
Okay.
And that's actually a great landing spot for that, because you get your opportunity to go recharge your batteries
Mhm.
and then you actually come and dust off the brain and get back into school mode.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, that was my only concern, but I went back home.
Yeah, go ahead, Richard.
Could you help me understand the reason for the late starts on Wednesdays?
Absolutely. So when you are in the business of education, it's a challenging business because you're so siloed. You come in and you might have 45 minutes, 50 minutes in the morning to go make some copies or attend a meeting, and then you're with children all day long. And that's wonderful. That's why we do this. But in the refinement of our own practice, in the pursuit of excellence and opportunity to grow and develop, we have to provide some professional development opportunities. And so it was many years ago. Actually, this is my 23rd year in education. And when I first got in, there were no late start Wednesdays. And I can tell you that when we kind of moved to this model, I don't know, 18, 19, 20 years ago, as an educator, I knew the withdrawal it was from the minutes that I had in front of my students. But it was a nod towards my professionalism and an opportunity for me to hone my craft in a space that was purposefully carved out to create that intentionality. Without it, I didn't have much choice. So this gives our folks opportunities to come together and do many different things. They can receive professional development. They can work in professional learning communities. That's one of our big beliefs, is that there's this notion of collective efficacy. When we have the belief and we are together in that belief and calibrated in our practices, we can really move the needle on student performance. That's not possible unless we have that time to really do that work together. So imagine running a business and there's no time for your employees to hone their craft or get better or to work together on calibration. So that's really what it's about.
And the days that are carved out as professional development days, are those used differently or they're sort of the same?
Similar but different. Those are bigger opportunities for us. The union has negotiated for certain days, the district has some days. A curriculum day is one of those is supposed to be completely untouched by us, and it's given to the teachers as an opportunity to do whatever work they want to do. The work of putting together an annual map, we call it understanding by design. It's that notion of working backwards. It's where do we want to go and what are the standards that are going to support that. It's actually extremely intensive to start with that end in mind, to scale that backwards for an annual map, to break that down into units, and then to have those units have assessments, opportunities for recursive or enrichment, and as well as to find all the materials that are going to support that. Again, when you look at one prep period during the day and a teacher fills that with maybe emailing some parents, using the bathroom, making some copies, there's just not a lot of space for them to do that intensive level of work. One of the greatest gifts that I ever received when I was an educator were summer opportunities to come in and do that work with a person that actually facilitated that work. And I'm telling you, the language that person used, her name is Kay Pensick, and I worked in Woodburn at the time. She used to use the language of confident and competent. When our teachers feel confident and competent because they know where they're going, they're not coming in the day before and trying to crank out the copies. It just increases the culture and the efficacy of everything within the classroom. So those curriculum days are really a nod towards them being able to do the work they need to do.
And I'm just, again, this is sort of new to me,
Happy to explain. Yeah.
And I guess my last question is, what's the difference between a staff work day and a curriculum development day?
So a curriculum day, again, those teachers are going to get that opportunity to do the work they need to do. A staff development day is our opportunity to come in and front load a lot of what we're going to be doing. So if you look at the beginning of the year when we have a staff development day, that's where we take our vision and our mission, that whole theme, and a lot of what we're going to unpack. Again, those Wednesdays are a gift. If we take them away for continuity for family's sake, I completely understand that. We can't just subtract. We've got to look for, a win-win if we do something like that in the future. But those staff development days, those are the opportunities for us to do the heavy front loading on what we're going to be doing throughout the year, because those Wednesdays, even though they are a gift, they're just not enough time. And honestly, a lot of people's brains are already moving towards what I'm going to do in the classroom. They're not fully devoted all the time to the task at hand, because they're kind of broadcasting to what's coming up, right? Those days, they're able to lower their stress level, their anxiety level, whatever it is they might be feeling, and be fully present in the moment to do the heavy lifting with us. In my mind, we just don't have enough of those to do that heavy lifting, because when we cast a vision and we do that lifting, it's hard to come back and be recursive when we become siloed with kids all day long. And that's part of the nature of leadership is that recency and frequency of what it is that we're doing, and reminding people what we're doing and creating space for what we're going to do. And that's just so challenging in the schedules that we have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I had a couple of questions too. First, I don't know if you have talked to Jillian already, but I like the new version. I think it's a lot easier for me to look at, but I also can see all of the colors.
Yeah.
And so there are other tricks to putting that online. So I don't know if you've talked about that at all.
As a colorblind person, I appreciate that. There's certain shades of red I can't see. So like
There's
people,
a lot of,
yeah.
close colors here that might be hard.
Yeah.
And so my second is sort of a piggyback here about the late start Wednesdays. And you mentioned that that was something that you guys considered, or your committee considered at some point. What was the driving factor for, I heard the intent of what we use the time for, but why was the time set staying on Wednesday and not some other time within the calendar?
Yeah, I think for this coming year, our timeline for when we started this process in January, we really need more time to look at Late Start Wednesday. And when we got the feedback from the survey, there was a lot of feedback on Late Start Wednesday. I think it's something we do need to look at, but it's going to be something that we're going to need to start in August and work through the year, get more stakeholder input to make a big change, like Late Start Wednesdays to then a full day curriculum. That's a really big change, and we wanted more time to be able to get a lot more feedback and look through how that would all plan out.
And that was feedback from both community and
Yeah.
staff.
We need to do a bigger, deeper dive
Yeah,
that we didn't have the time to do this year, but definitely something that we're considering.
and so normally when the calendar committee would meet, that would be something you would have time to look at before next year's maybe.
Technically, we talked about it last year.
I mean,
Yeah,
I hear a
just-
lot of
just
families
COVID.
complain about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of came into this, and so I think it's something that we've had conversations with and have the commitment to really take that on. So.
I think what you have to do is look at
Guidance.
what is the scope of the calendar committee team? Up to this point, it's been mostly focused on just construction of a new calendar. It hasn't been so much
Right.
the next level of, that might be something that maybe
Yeah.
we're charged with.
Yeah.
And even so, some of this came up last year, just the constant interruptions and reassignment of our attention based on constantly changing horizon lines has made it even more challenging.
I look forward to that conversation next year. This would be a robust conversation. I've heard it from lots of different
Yeah.
stakeholders, many teachers. What if we just had one day a month where we just did this
Right.
instead of these schedules? It's like, well, we'll have conversations about it. COVID has really kind of impacted our ability to have robust conversations. about things. So I'm looking forward to having the opportunity to really dig deeply into this, and so everyone feels really good about that. And the calendar committee's charge is to collaboratively develop proposals and to share them with the board for adoption, and that the board receives the recommendations, but is still the decision makers. It works out very nicely. And community, staff, collaborative work, board. We need a motion. Okay. Is this an adoptable?
Oh, we need a motion.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the version 2 of this presented, 2022, 2023 version 2 calendar as presented and recommended by the calendar committee.
So. Motion in a second, is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the said motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
nice
Thank you for the
to
work.
meet you.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
for interfacing and things like that.
Good work.
Appreciate it.
I think I'm up next.
Yeah, yes.
So our contract is to expire with First Student, and they approached us a couple of months ago to have a 3-year extension, which we were glad to do. We had asked all of our administrators and of any issues or complaints, and they were overwhelmingly glowing on the partnership we've had with First Student in the last 2 years with COVID and all of the help they gave us with our lunches, our supply delivery, our Chromebook deliveries. They've bent over backwards to make sure that we were taken care of. So this is a 3-year extension that Ginger and I are recommending with a 4.95% increase on the first year and 7.25 or the CPI for years 2 and 3. These are not really much higher than the last time we did an extension, but they do make our expense go higher, but we need to be somewhat competitive in order to keep our bus drivers. And if we don't have bus drivers, we don't get our students here very well. So we would like to recommend that you approve this extension.
Question.
Sure, go ahead.
What's the term of the current contract?
Linda, it's a 3-year contract, is that correct?
I'm sorry, what do you mean as the term?
The current contract, are we close to the end or are we extending?
Well, was it a 3-year term, I guess, in the current contract?
No, we've had first student or whatever their name was prior to that since before I came to this district. So the contract has been reworked like probably 2 times fully and then extended other times, maybe 3 times fully and then extended other times. This is an extension to our current contract.
Okay. And what was the change in rates that was built into the current contract?
Linda?
Richard, I'd have to get back to you on that. I don't have that on the top of my head.
I mean, I guess like the comment, you know, it seems to me like, I mean, even in our current sort of inflationary environment, a 7.25% adder for a 3-year term is generous, I guess, in my view. So I'm just curious how that compares to what's in the current contract.
Let us do some research and get back to you on it.
I can get you some information on that and get it to you. I would obviously, I was preparing for our next portion of this today.
So
I'll make a motion, we go with staff recommendation to approve the extension for 3 years of the first student transportation contract, June 30, 2022 to June 30, 2025.
I'll second that.
motion and a second. Is there any more discussion?
I'll make a comment that during COVID, I got to experience a couple times, especially on the food runs. What first student did for this district is way over the top and outstanding. And even bus drivers running out with us volunteers to put food on people's doors and not just doing their job, but going way above what they needed, and the flexibility that we had when we had school shutdowns and things like that. They really worked with us to keep us within budget, even though the contract wasn't so. So just saying that's my observation.
I'll also comment that there has been school buses that have brought backpacks back to my house multiple times, and I'm not the only one. When my kids were little. So I mean, and given like the other components in healthcare where we're having to really adjust our wages, I think that it fits closely along that line.
Any more discussion? Hearing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of extending this contract from June 30th, 2022 through June 30th, 2025, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Actually, that should. Item 7C, actually, I'm gonna turn it over to you to Bill, because you were the maker of this motion.
So in some thought processes that were going on over the last month, in my head anyways, to kind of bring us more in line with where we stand, especially in our outdoor facilities, I made a comment and was inclined to present a motion that we have the superintendent put together a committee, and this doesn't really state the way I had sent the email out. This is, I'm gonna stick with the way I presented it, which is that we just have a committee of some staff members, athletic people, and a board member, which is why I'm suggesting it, because be willing to do this. That we just put together a list of our evaluations of our current outdoor sports fields and some of their but the deficiencies, and then a list of things that would be like nice to have. The way I was thinking about this when I decided to submit a proposal to make a committee for this is how we ran the bond. Now, for sports fields, it's gonna be far, far less than the bond, but we did an analysis of each building. We got to see, okay, here's where our shortfalls are, here's what we needs are, and we categorized that. And then we looked at the list, and then we got a professional, which was, this case was DLR, to come in and then also do an estimate of things. Sometimes we chose to do right away. For example, if you remember when we were talking about the bond, for those of us that were on the board, we went ahead and did the roofing of the the primary school because that was just critical emergency that we needed to have done. And so even though the bond wasn't there, we just chose to work with that vendor and just said, we need to do that and we'll make it part of the bond. So there are things that we need done, but to move the process forward, that my mind says, let's do that same kind of thing. Let's get a list of the deficiencies and wants and desires for our outdoor sports activities, and then look at the cost, get some cost estimates, and then decide where we're drawing the line, and then get those funds. And then also then, at that point, my thinking is we submit it to a Title IX analysis to say, okay, here's the things that we see, give us a fair evaluation on that. So for me, Title IX shouldn't be here right now. We should get a list of what we need to get done, what must be done, what should get done, and what our wants are, and then go through that and then figure out how we're going to do that and start it quickly. So I asked that this be put on for today's agenda more along those lines. That's the way I intended it. So my concept was, I'll say this, to make a motion to direct the superintendent to put together a subcommittee of staff, coaches, and a board member volunteering to go and review and make that list for the board for consideration. Again, similar process to the way we ran the bond process.
Bill, thank you for like reading my mind and organizing it. Because that is the exact components that I feel like really weary on, is that we don't really have a clear understanding of where we are, where we're going, and how to address Title IX and everything else. So that's my comment, and I'd be more than happy to make that motion, but I'm sure other people probably have comments.
I think we got a motion.
So I made the motion.
Oh, I'll second it then.
That's a big motion. You want to refine that down? Yeah, go ahead, Richard.
So Bill, I guess I agree with kind of your logic here around Title IX, and I think that's the right way to approach that in terms of just order of operations. Are you thinking this committee would go away once they come up with sort of the assessment of the current facilities and deliver that, or what's?
And make the list of
Yeah.
items.
And maybe.
What we did with bond, which was really cool, and I really loved it. And of course, the bond was 42 million. This is obviously gonna be 1/10 of that, maybe, or one less than 1/10 of that. Right, so, but what we did was we had that list, and then we made a public kind of meeting to just order the list. Right, and so we had that priority. So build a new high school was obviously, everybody agreed to that. Right, and then we started working down safety and all these other things. So we kind of do a kind of a board / maybe public. I don't have that thought in my head clearly yet, but just to look and rank order that list would be a wider audience than this committee, right? This committee just brings the facts, and then a wider group orders those, and then we also get a Title IX evaluation on that list as well. And then that tells us where we can draw the line and how much money, and we'll know how much money we can raise. Say we raise $100,000, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we draw that line and say, okay, are we happy? Right, and if we're not happy, what are we gonna do? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's it.
Right.
I think, and myself and Bill chatted about this, I think this may begin as a superintendent committee, eventually it could morph into a standing committee.
Yeah.
As part of this body.
Yeah.
That would sort of keep their eyes and ears on.
So we're not really an oversight committee, but similar to that kind of thing.
I think this is good. I think this
Driving
is a good first start. I think this is a good way to collaborate with with Ginger and get some of those first steps. I really appreciate you bringing it in that form, because I think it's a good idea. It's time has come, so.
I think it needs to also involve indoor facilities, access to indoor facilities.
Athletic facilities.
Yeah,
That's
That
right.
was,
Yeah.
that was gonna be my
weight
comment.
room, locker
Because
room.
we hit those with the bond quite hard, right?
You
so-
think we hit them with
Well,
that.
we did, because I know the problem we went through to do
But
that.
I'm saying, I don't know what each individual team's access to
Sure.
those facilities are, and that would come from the individual
Yeah.
teams.
That, Christie, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
The problem is if we don't approach this with a Title IX lens, then it just
Yeah.
becomes a facility,
Yeah.
assessment. And that's not really, I think, where we want it. I think, in my mind, we were looking more as like, not only indoor and outdoor facilities, but any Title IX area, which can be outside of sports also.
Yeah.
So,
Clubs,
Yeah.
clubs, yeah.
dancing.
So, yeah,
Scheduling of
cheerleading,
timing,
Yeah.
scheduling of
equestrian,
practices.
I don't know,
Alright,
but,
so part of that
Well, that's driving more.
study would
Title
be, when I'm looking at the facilities, understanding on an annual basis who uses it and how it's used. And then that way we can assess who's access, who has access to it, who uses it.
Right, like if we have a great weight room, that's great, but if it's always occupied from 3 till 7 PM by the same team,
Right,
then we don't have,
yeah, so
We're
that
not
can be part of the
compliant,
study.
right?
I
Yeah.
can do
Yeah.
that too.
There has to be some level of that in there.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
And given this is a superintendent's committee to start with, and her knowing that details and that feedback, I think she could have a latitude to include that. I agree with including maybe the indoors. I don't know how detailed our motion needs to be, because I don't want to get into operational details but I do agree that I think the scope should be slightly larger than just outdoor facilities, so.
I think though, Bill, the verbiage that you used earlier, I didn't quite understand, because you said like capital improvements. for the
Capital improvements, right?
I don't know that that's exactly the language, we might want to ask them exactly what kind of language you want to use there, because.
For a business person, it's capital improvements. And I'm not looking at how much uniforms cost and how often they get replaced. That is an expense.
So who is gonna
issue.
look at that?
Capital improvements, somebody can. I'm talking about this team, just look at the actual facilities.
Okay, so this is a good start, but this is not gonna,
It's not intended to
this
be.
is not inclusive in our, I don't want this to substitute for our Title
no,
IX
Yeah.
examination, because it's gonna have to be more broad.
Yeah, it just seems like this is one more data point. maybe.
This is capital investment.
Yeah, it
is what I'm
starts with
talking about.
the place, then we'll go to the use, and then we'll look at the next layer until we have a comprehensive picture. But
I see that almost out of function, because fixing the place is gonna take years. Fixing the function or the timing or the availability of resources that we have right now could be changed tomorrow.
Mhm.
Right, that's a management decision, and so I
agree.
think it's an error to
I see them
delay
connected.
that.
Yeah, I see them connected, that we're studying both at the same time.
Yeah, I feel like
But we-
it's a two-part system. There's like what we have, how it's
How it's
used,
used, who uses it.
who uses
Yeah.
it, when their equipment or their uniforms are replenished,
Mhm.
because that's a huge factor as well. And then there's the repair and facility piece. I feel like it's a two-pronged system.
So just from my standpoint, maybe we should separate these into two separate, because I get where you're coming from, Bill, with
Yeah.
yours. I don't know as if.
I mean, I would
The
say
level of
that's kind of-
detail in that, because you get a motion, is gonna be,
Yeah.
but we could certainly have a follow-up motion to also direct that the Title IX, the other components of that.
I think that's for the
Does
lead
that make
of the
sense?
title, I think that's for the lead for our Title IX person, which we have a Title IX person, right? So,
Kind of.
you know,
It's for a different part of the
Yeah.
timeline. But that's okay. We're gonna get some more information from Paul coming soon to help us with this. But I think starting with the facility and the use will lead to that, that's, okay, now we have an idea. Now we can ask the next set of questions. So I think if we contain it here, it's doable and it can be done a lot faster. If we make it more complex and add additional layers now, it will really slow down the process.
Is there a way to, put this on our future topics or reviews so that we make sure that we touch base, that we have a deadline or something for when we, so that this doesn't just fall through the cracks?
Yeah, and that's part of what I would really like to do. But as we're wrapping up this year and we're coming to our end of this year, is that we have board goals established before the end of this year. This would be a board goal. And then we make a plan for that work to occur next year, and then we report out quarterly, and then have an end of the year report. It's that kind of a process. It doesn't have to be exactly like that. But if we have a strategic plan, that's going to take staff time. If we have this, that's also going to take staff time. So that's two. If there's one other goal we can try to work on, great, but that would be it for the year. So I think that's a conversation we need to have as a board, maybe in end of April, beginning of May, about setting goals for the following year. Once we fine tune that, then I will have my marching orders and I can start putting a plan together to do the work before the end of the year, which would be very helpful. And that helps Linda and that helps everyone else as well.
So do you suspect we'll have advice from Paul before April?
Yes.
So maybe we should just agree to have some sort of a report. Paul's information being part of that in April, and then we can follow up on some of those details. Is that agreeable?
Yeah.
But that doesn't deal with the motion the bill hasn't.
But I'm okay with that if we do the facilities in the use and get that information first. That would work.
Yeah.
For right now.
I feel, Christy, I understand the part that you're talking about, because I don't want this to be delayed where we're not addressing the real root of our problem, which is, this Title IX issue. So I want to support you in the fact of, if you feel like this facilities piece is going to hamper the ability to look at that, then I don't want to go with it. But if you think that these two can coincide, then I'm fine with that, because I do respect that you can see that both sides of that fence.
I don't know that that's really my decision.
Well, I know, but I put the second out there,
Yeah,
and so is this something that you feel like we can get a clear perspective on both? Because you felt like you're putting the cart before the horse by having the facility piece. You think?
well, I mean, ideally, it all get done right now. I mean, right? But that's never the case.
Well,
So.
masks are off, so it should be fun. Yeah, I'm kidding. They're optional.
I mean, I think I would defer to what Ginger thinks is reasonable. It seems like you think that both could happen now in a fairly short time frame.
Yeah.
And we would have, and maybe that's not like counting every grain of sand, but it's a big overview, right? And we'll have a pretty good idea after that large
It's actually
survey.
the second step that leads to the third question, which is what you asked. So having that second part done is
Right.
instant into that next question. So it's a great setup.
Yeah, I would be happy with that. I think that would. And, I think it would be educational for everyone. So, that would be a goal.
So last thing, Heidi, anything else? Not to take your gusto, but since I seconded, I just want to make sure. Ricardo?
Can I volunteer to be part of this too? Because I feel like with the group that I helped here, there was times, and I thought, and I was wrong, honestly. I thought that the music was interfering with the children that were practicing. And it turns out that it was actually helpful, but still I want to have a place where we don't have to, like, worry about that, or are we interrupting someone else's practices? So I, kind of want to be part of that.
Sure.
Too.
Duly noted. I'll remember that.
Ricardo would like more work.
This, I mean, I enjoy that. It's-
No, and I actually appreciate you stepping up and saying that, because I really do. So getting back to, I guess we're discussing a motion, but is there any more discussion on the motion, which has a second?
Yes,
Okay.
sorry, we went out of order.
Hearing that, do we need to restate the motion, or do you want
Oh, we're
to?
good.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Does that work, Diane? All those in favor of the motion on the table, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
I think you're at 9 and then we need to move into 10.
What's that?
You're at 9 and then we need to move into 10.
One thing that isn't, I just noticed, it's not on our agenda, is just to remind the board that we have a superintendent evaluation that's due.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Oh,
take
you
note of
just
that,
said
but
it,
yeah,
okay, thank you.
yeah, so have those good forms been sent out yet, Diane? You were still waiting for me to give the go ahead to, okay, so you will be getting the superintendent evaluation. It is a fillable form, correct, Diane?
It is.
Okay, so it's a fillable form. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Actually, it's a Google survey
Okay,
and it's modeled after the superintendent workbook, the most recent one from OSBA. I also got some input from some neighboring districts like Mesa for one, Brooks Harbor. They've already kind of recreated or created their survey. And so kind of looking at theirs and then I created our models exactly right after. So you know how surveys are, you put in your ratings and then that will help Glenn be able to tally everything.
yeah, everything is
That
like flipping
easier.
sheets last year, so this will hopefully help me do that. Anyway, if you guys, so we set a date on here, if you can have them back by March 22nd to me. So if you email them directly to my district email,
Actually, I think just filling out the form, it'll go right to you.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah.
So then her and I are gonna aggregate those and then we'll be able to do, I think, executive sessions at our next meeting, is that correct? To discuss those, to come up with a final document, so.
Can I add something?
Yeah, go ahead.
It is very helpful when you make comments and you give, instead of just doing a rating, it helps to give ginger guidance and it helps us to formulate an evaluation more. So please put in guidance, not guidance, comments that are constructive and, or, to the point to.
Yeah, comments are definitely a good thing in there, because, some people rate different ways or, rate different metrics, and sometimes it's good to have a little bit of feedback in there to know exactly what you're, what your thinking is. Is that?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Alrighty, with that, I guess we're done, so. I will go ahead and adjourn us at 7:37. Does everybody need a break for executive session before we start that? So let's take 5 minutes.
Okay, and then we'll go back to the other one.
What's that?
We'll go back to the room.
Okay. Oh, do we have technology over there though? We got.
Remember what's gonna come over here, but,
Glenn? Glenn, I have to get over there, so give
Okay.
me 10 minutes.
Okay, so give us 10 minutes then.
Yes, all right, bye.
All right, thanks.